Close your eyes for a moment and imagine a version of yourself who is already living everything you most desire. Notice this: that version is not somewhere in the future. It exists now, in another point of the quantum field. At the deepest level of reality, time is not a line. It is a superposition of possibilities vibrating simultaneously. What determines which one becomes tangible is not physical effort, but the emotional frequency you sustain. Joe Dispenza explains that every state of consciousness collapses a different timeline. When you vibrate in fear, you collapse realities consistent with fear. When you vibrate in trust, the field responds with opportunities that mirror that same harmony. Emotional focus is the true quantum observer, the point of consciousness that turns potential into form. Bruce Lipton expands on this by showing that our subconscious beliefs influence not only the mind but also biology. Cells respond to the frequencies we emit, reorganizing chemistry, hormones, and perception. Your body becomes a living radio, tuning into and broadcasting the frequency of the world you experience. The most common mistake is believing that manifestation is about acquiring something outside, when in truth it's about synchronizing from within. It's not about working harder, forcing, or praying with intensity, but about aligning thought, emotion, and identity until the entire body recognizes the desired reality as natural. The field doesn't distinguish dreams from memories. It simply mirrors the coherence of the state you maintain. That's why the future isn't a place you reach, it's a frequency you access. The life you dream of isn't ahead of you, it's here, waiting for your inner vibration to match it. And that is the purpose of this script: to understand, through science and consciousness, how to change stations effortlessly, learning to inhabit now the version of you who already lives what you've been seeking. Quantum physics teaches us that we live in a sea of infinite possibilities, a field of superposition where all versions of you already coexist. There is the you who took the leap and expanded, the one who gave up out of fear, the one who prospered in peace, the one still searching for meaning. All of these versions are real, vibrating in different frequencies within the same field. Joe Dispenza often says the quantum field is like a map of infinite destinations, and that every emotion and thought acts as coordinates. When you change your internal state, you shift the timeline you are on. What we call the future is simply the updated frequency you are emitting in this moment. Bruce Lipton confirms that our cells operate like biological antennas, picking up signals from the internal and external environment. If the internal field vibrates in fear, the body responds with survival chemistry. If it vibrates in love, it opens space for regeneration and expansion. In both cases, biology and reality merely reflect the dominant frequency. The idea that there is only one reality is therefore a perceptual illusion. In truth, consciousness navigates different versions of the same scenario, switching stations according to the emotional state being sustained. It's like changing channels. The content always existed, but only becomes visible when you tune into it. Superposition isn't a distant theory, it's daily practice. Every thought is a vibrational choice, every emotion a vote for a reality. When you remain coherent with the frequency of what you wish to live, the universe doesn't create something new. It simply reveals what was already available, waiting for your alignment. The quantum field is not a judge nor an oracle. It is a mirror. It does not reward worthiness nor punish mistakes. It only reflects the vibrational state you hold most consistently. If you emit insecurity, the field amplifies circumstances that confirm that tone. If you vibrate trust, it returns synchronicities that expand that vibration. Reality has no morality, only coherence. Bruce Lipton explains that the body reads the external environment through the internal lens of belief. Cells, hormones, and neurotransmitters respond to what the mind believes is true. Thus, what you call life is, in practice, your biological system reflecting the content of your own consciousness. Internal chemistry becomes the language through which the field decodes your intentions. Joe Dispenza builds on this principle by showing that the electromagnetic field of the heart is the main transmitter of that information. It is the bridge between biology and the invisible field. When the heart is coherent, meaning thought and emotion move together, the transmission is clear. When they are misaligned, the field receives a scrambled signal, and the return is confusing. Which is why trying to change the reflection without changing the emission is pointless. It's like arguing with the mirror because it shows something you don't want to see. No external effort alters the image while the inner projector remains unchanged. The turning point is always internal. Adjust the signal, not the reflection. Quantum mastery begins when you realize everything is feedback. Every event, every person, every coincidence is a vibrational mirror of what you're emitting. Reality isn't against you, it's simply showing you in visible language what your field is already saying in the invisible. The simple act of observing changes the result. Quantum physics proved this through the double-slit experiment. Particles of light behave like waves of infinite possibility until someone observes them. In the instant consciousness enters the scene, the wave collapses into a specific point. Human attention turns potential into fact. Life works the same way. What you observe emotionally becomes denser, more real. Joe Dispenza describes conscious observation as the moment when the creator awakens within the observer. When you direct attention with aligned intention and feeling, reality responds as if it were alive, reshaping itself according to the new focus. Neutral observation creates space. Coherent observation collapses possibility into experience. But most people observe from fear. They look at lack, delay, or what isn't yet, and unknowingly keep those timelines active. Observation is nourishment. Whatever you charge emotionally expands, even if it's what you want to avoid. Consciousness, therefore, isn't just witness. It is vibrational fertilizer. Bruce Lipton explains that this is not metaphor, but biology. When the mind fixes attention on an idea, the body releases hormones and neurotransmitters that reproduce the corresponding emotion. That chemistry spreads through every cell, altering the personal electromagnetic field. In other words, internal observation, thought plus emotion, literally informs external reality. To observe is to choose, and to choose is to create. Every time you take your gaze off what you fear and place it on what you desire to feel, the universe reshapes its probabilities. It isn't control, it is conscious collaboration with the field. You don't force the wave to collapse, you invite it, with the elegance of one who remembers that attention is the brush that paints the invisible. Reality operates like a vast panel of frequencies, a radio with infinite stations. Each timeline, each version of your life, broadcasts a unique sound, a specific vibration. You don't need to create the ideal station, it already exists. What determines what you hear is the tuning of your emotional attention. When the body vibrates scarcity, it picks up signals of lack. When it vibrates gratitude, the field returns abundance. The most common mistake is trying to change the station by turning the wrong dial, the dial of forced action. People rush, make lists, repeat affirmations, yet continue transmitting anxiety. And the field, always loyal to coherence, responds not to words but to state. To tune in is not to speak differently, it is to feel differently. Joe Dispenza teaches that true change happens when the body believes the new thought. As long as the body still vibrates the past, fear, doubt, control, the signal remains stuck on the same frequency. The training is physiological. Each breath, each conscious pause, each shift of focus is a fine adjustment of the vibrational dial. Bruce Lipton adds, when cells perceive an internal environment of safety and trust, they express genes of vitality and regeneration. But if the internal environment vibrates threat, the body goes into defense and biology closes down. It's like trying to hear a symphony on a static-filled radio. Coherence clears the channel. Tuning the right dial is remembering that the field doesn't understand words, it understands signals. And your body is the transmitter. When you breathe with presence, feel with clarity, and choose with calm, the universe recognizes the pattern and responds. The sound changes. Circumstances begin to dance to the rhythm of your new frequency, and the invisible rearranges itself to match what you finally allowed yourself to be. The culture of do more taught us that success comes from accumulation. More hours, more tasks, more intensity. But in the quantum field, the equation is reversed. It is not the amount of action that defines the result, but the purity of the signal. Reality responds to coherence, not volume. Excessive effort born from lack creates noise. Inspired action born from presence creates expansion. Joe Dispenza often says that when you enter coherence, the universe naturally conspires in your favor, not as a miracle, but as resonance. Elevated emotion is the ignition that attracts matching opportunities. There is no struggle when the frequency is correct. Flow replaces friction. Working hard in a state of contraction is like trying to push a river. Tuning in is aligning with the current that already exists. Bruce Lipton confirms this at a biological level. A body in constant stress operates in survival mode, draining vital energy to maintain defense. A body in coherence releases chemistry of regeneration, creativity, and expanded perception. Effort in that state is not power, it is resistance. The more the nervous system believes it must fight, the less room there is for the field to act. The transition from effort to frequency requires the courage to stop controlling every detail, to stop measuring progress by exhaustion, to stop confusing urgency with effectiveness. Conscious pause recalibrates the field. When the body slows and the heart stabilizes, the vibration naturally rises, and the energy once spent forcing turns into magnetism. Frequency is inner mastery. Effort is external attempt. Magnetic coherence is born from state, not speed. When you trade effort for tuning, you change the origin of your actions. They stop being compensation and become expression. And that is the moment reality begins to respond with ease, because the universe does not speak overload, it speaks harmony. Most of creation does not happen consciously. Bruce Lipton states that around 95% of our decisions and perceptions are governed by subconscious programs, memories, conditioning, and beliefs that play like invisible scripts. The subconscious is like a movie projector, silent but decisive. You can replace the screen or change the setting, but if the film stays the same, the story repeats. These programs were installed in early childhood when the brain operated in theta waves, a hypnotic state of total absorption. At that age, a child does not analyze, it records. It records the tone of voice of parents, the expressions of fear, the reactions to scarcity. All of that becomes vibrational code the body learns to call normal. As adults, we recreate familiar experiences, even painful ones, simply because the frequency is recognizable. Joe Dispenza explains that the body is the subconscious in motion. It repeats emotions like chemical addictions. Anger, guilt, worry, all become familiar, and the nervous system unconsciously seeks to reproduce them. So even when you think about changing, the body tries to maintain what is predictable. The conscious mind wants the new. The body insists on the old. Reprogramming the subconscious is not about fighting it, it's about educating it. The first step is observing the pattern without judgment. The second is teaching the body to feel safe in new states, through breathing, gratitude, and emotional repetition. Bruce Lipton shows that when the internal environment changes, the body literally rewrites its genetic expression. The new feeling becomes the new program. The subconscious is not an enemy, it's an outdated ally. It is only following old instructions. When you update those instructions with presence, coherent emotion, and conscious repetition, the projector changes the film. And like a silent shift, the screen of life begins to display new scenes, without force or miracle, but by vibrational reprogramming. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are. This is one of the silent laws of the quantum field. Reality does not respond to your words, but to the vibrational signature of your identity. Bruce Lipton shows that the body and environment form a continuous communication system. Your cells respond to the energetic field of who you believe you are. If the belief is, I am limited, the body vibrates contraction. If it is, I am whole, it emits expansion. Every identity is a broadcasting station that automatically selects the type of reality it connects with. In the quantum realm, every version of you already exists. Joe Dispenza calls this the collapse of timelines, the moment when a new identity becomes so emotionally real that the field reorganizes probabilities to match it. Time then stops being chronological and becomes vibrational. The future that once seemed distant approaches, not because time advances, but because frequency shifts. But here lies the paradox. Most people try to change reality while keeping the same identity that created it. They want abundance while still vibrating lack. They want love while still carrying the signature of rejection. It is not desire that transforms, it is the internal state that sustains it. The field does not read intentions, it reads coherence. When feeling, thought, and action vibrate in unison, reality collapses in that direction. Assuming a new identity is not pretending to be someone else. It is remembering who you were before limiting beliefs. It is a return to essence, not an invention. This happens in the body, not just in the mind. That's why every small coherent act, a conscious breath, a more present gaze, a quieter choice, reconfigures the vibrational signature. The universe responds to that consistency with a new order. To change timelines is, in truth, to change who is observing. When you stop being the conditioned character and return to being the conscious observer, the movie changes on its own. The collapse of a new reality doesn't happen because you force the field, but because you become the field. And in that moment, the future stops being something you wait for and becomes the inevitable reflection of the identity you sustain now. The heart is more than an organ, it is a field of intelligence. Research cited by Bruce Lipton and the HeartMath Institute reveals that the heart possesses an electromagnetic field 50 times stronger than the brain's. It sends constant signals that influence not only the nervous system but also how the brain interprets reality. When the heart is in coherence, meaning its waves are ordered and rhythmic, the entire body falls into harmony. Joe Dispenza explains that this coherence creates a clear electromagnetic signature, like a beam of light without distortion. In this state, the brain stops operating in survival, high beta, and shifts into alpha and gamma waves, those associated with creation and intuition. Heart and mind then form a single circuit, transmitting a unified frequency that the quantum field recognizes and replicates. When there is misalignment, the signal fragments. The mind thinks one thing, the heart feels another, and the body reacts with noise. It's like trying to hear music on a poorly tuned radio. Life echoes that same static, missed opportunities, repeated cycles, confusing synchronicities. Coherence, on the other hand, clears the channel. Vibration becomes pure, and the field responds with precision. Entering coherence does not require complex rituals. It takes only 3 steps: conscious breathing, inhale for 4, exhale for 6, evoking an elevated emotion such as genuine gratitude or compassion, and placing attention on the center of the chest. Within seconds, the heart rhythm shifts, the brain aligns, and the nervous system receives the signal of safety. From that state, decisions become clearer, the body lighter, and intuition more accessible. Heart and mind in coherence are like 2 tuned instruments playing the same note. When that happens, the entire universe seems to follow the rhythm. There is no longer separation between what you feel, think, and manifest. Everything begins to move in harmony with the field. And in that state, the miracle becomes natural, not as an exception, but as the vibrational response to sustained coherence. Before something becomes visible, it has already been felt. The quantum field precedes form. It is where information vibrates before collapsing into reality. Joe Dispenza calls this the pre-signal of the field, a zone of subtle synchronicities, precise coincidences, and quiet emotional neutrality that announce change before the eyes can see it. It's like dawn. The light has already shifted, even if the sun hasn't yet appeared. These signals are not messages from outside, but reflections from within. Bruce Lipton explains that when the body enters a new emotional state, biology changes, and the field around it reorganizes to mirror that new vibration. Small situations, an unexpected encounter, a phrase overheard, an obstacle that appears and disappears quickly, function as energetic biofeedback. The field begins to respond to the new emission. Emotional neutrality is another essential indicator. Before manifestation, there is a moment when the old loses strength and the new has not yet solidified. The body feels an odd calm, almost silence, which can be mistaken for apathy. But in truth, it is the 0 point of creation. It is the moment when the nervous system stops vibrating in lack and begins operating in trust. In that fertile void, the field reorganizes more quickly. The secret is to acknowledge these signs without anxiety. When you observe with presence without trying to interpret or control, the field stabilizes. Synchronicity is a signal, not a test. It does not ask for haste, it asks for coherence. Each time you respond with gratitude instead of doubt, the frequency expands, and the invisible begins to take form. The signals of the field are like the wind that announces a changing season. You can't see the wind, but you feel the leaves move. Manifestation works the same way. First the body shifts, then life responds. And when you learn to recognize these subtle previews, you realize reality never arrives by surprise. It simply reveals itself at the exact rhythm of your vibration. Linear time is an illusion created by the mind to organize experience. In the quantum field, everything already exists. Past, present, and future coexist as vibrational possibilities. Bruce Lipton explains that each belief, emotion, and decision generates a specific bioelectric reading, a kind of coordinate within that field. Every time you change your vibration, you change your position within that web of possible realities. What we call the future is not distant, it is a frequency available now. Joe Dispenza describes timeline jumps as moments when consciousness aligns so deeply with a new identity that the body and reality reorganize instantly. There is no force, only tuning. Biology responds to the new command, perception shifts, and what once seemed unlikely now feels natural. It's like switching the channel of consciousness. All broadcasts are in the air, but you hear only the one you tune into. These jumps don't happen in chaos, but in the silence between thoughts. When the nervous system enters coherence and the heart stabilizes, the field responds with mathematical precision. Time, which once seemed linear, begins to bend around coherent intention. Synchronicities multiply, people appear at the right moment, and paths open without effort. The common mistake is trying to force the jump. That only reinforces a state of lack. The jump is not an achievement, it is a permission. The vibration must be felt as real now, not desired as a distant future. When the body accepts the new state as normal, not as an exception, the timeline shifts without being pushed. The new reality simply becomes more accessible than the old one. Living in quantum time is understanding that the now contains all possible futures. With each breath, you can choose which version of yourself to sustain. And when that choice is made with coherence and serenity, the field responds with precision. Time stops being a road and becomes a mirror, reflecting, at every instant, what you vibrate. Bruce Lipton teaches that changing your internal state literally changes the body, and the body in turn shifts the field of possibility around you. When you alter beliefs, emotions, and perceptions, you are reprogramming your biology, and with it, your reality. Joe Dispenza adds, the quantum field does not respond to force of will, but to vibrational coherence. It does not move through effort, it moves through frequency. The field is neutral, yet infinitely responsive. It simply returns what you emit consistently. And that emission doesn't come from words or plans, it comes from what you feel when no one is watching, from the silent vibration between one thought and the next. When that vibration stabilizes in trust, love, or gratitude, the entire universe begins to reorganize around your new signature. Manifestation is not a future event. It is the reflection of your present state. Everything you experience is a response to what you consistently vibrate. Synchronicities, meetings, and subtle openings are simply echoes of the field confirming the harmony you sustain. The invisible organizes first, the visible merely follows. By aligning mind, heart, and body, you don't create something new. You remember what already exists. You tune into the version of yourself that has always been available, waiting only for your frequency to match it. That is why the path is not one of conquest, but of return. Return to coherence, to presence, to the naturalness of being who you already are. And when that remembrance stabilizes, time loses the power to delay you. Reality stops being a race and becomes a dance with the field. Then, what once was the future arrives as now, and what once felt distant reveals itself intimate, breathing within you. Because in the end, manifestation is not about making the universe hear you. It is about learning to hear it in the silence where everything begins.